Hello, everyone out there in fantasy football land. It's your beloved commissioner, Jeff D. Thanks for tuning in today. All right, so this video is going to be for the one fantasy football league that is run by the Downfield Read, and that is the Downfield Read Dynasty League, which is comprised of 12 different teams, including yours truly, and 11 of my most favorite extended family. If you're not in the league, it's not like you're not my favorite. Just, they're most of my favorite. That's all. So here's what we've got for you today. First thing that I'm going to say is this is going to be a recap coming out after week 13. It's Thursday, late afternoon, early evening, depending on where you are at. Most of my extended family, and I thought I would do this as far as a video form. Last time I just kind of typed it up and I posted it in the messages. But since everyone is out at the in-laws' parents' place in North Carolina, in Greensboro, I thought, you know what? I have gone to this the last couple of years, and this year I didn't. And I thought maybe you just want to see my face. So here it is, right there. I'm there with you. All right, so here we go, though. This is going to be a recap of week 14. And before we get into it, I am going to say that for everyone else watching, this is going to get posted. Might be boring for you, but the one thing that I will say is I actually looked it up. And while we do have this league, and it's the second league or the second year of the Dynasty League in which you win this awesome trophy. I did not win last year, just as a side note. It is here in my basement in the Raven Cave, but I didn't win it. My brother-in-law, Justin, did. He actually won, and then he brought it to the draft party this last year as partly bragging rights, but I think he felt a little bit bad about actually winning, and he wanted to give the trophy to the rightful winner, the guy who should have won it, and so that's why it's here. So I think that's pretty much what he said too, is like, hey, you're the best fantasy football player I've ever met, and you should probably hang out of the trophy. It was something along those lines, maybe not word for word, but that's kind of what it was anyway. So I've got this league. It's the second year that we're running it. I'm going to give you a breakdown of where everybody is at, what you need to do in order to make the playoffs and all that fun stuff. But I actually looked it up, and there is no fantasy football league for just fantasy platforms or fantasy companies or fantasy, whatever you want to call it, out there. So I'm proposing this. I'm going to post this to everyone, and hopefully everybody gets this. I would love to have the first ever fantasy, whatever you want to call it, company, platform, whatever you're doing. And I'm looking at you, DraftKings. I'm looking at you, Fantasy Pros, Fantasy Careers. I'm already in a league with you. Love to have you in a more professionally run fantasy football league. Fantasy Source, Fantasy Pros, PFF, FanDuel, Underdog, all you guys, put your money where your mouth is. Put your fantasy knowledge where your mouth is. Let's do a league 2025. I will run it. I'm going to send out a message to all you guys, and we'll see who the best fantasy provider, fantasy football provider, most knowledgeable person is out there. So I'm going to throw that out to everyone, and we are going to now get into the Downfield Read Season 2 Dynasty League here, and who's in the running for winning the championship trophy that they get to put their name on, a little plaque, put it on the side, and carry that with you for the next year into the next draft. And if you want to bring it back, that's cool too. But before we get into that, we haven't decided, league, Downfield Read League, we haven't decided what the punishment is going to be this year for the worst fantasy football player. Last year, it was Kyle, my nephew-in-law, and he was really great about it. He's had a much better year this year. He finished last year. He actually got off to a really great start, 6-2, and then he went downhill from there, lost 4 in a row. He was 6-6, and now we'll get into where he's standing right now. But I'm going to bring up the picture of Kyle and tell you where we are at with him right there. There's Kyle. Hey, Kyle. That's the punishment that was last year. I went and bought that shirt for him, fantasy football last place. This year, I think we have to come up with something different. This year, somebody had mentioned a license plate cover, a pink maybe license plate cover that says fantasy football last place, fantasy football loser, I'm the worst fantasy football player ever. And just to give you an idea of who's in the running for that, there's actually 2. Right now, it looks like it's going to be Bijan Mustardson and the Laporta Potty, who are actually tied. They're in the same division. They've played each other once already this year. They have the same record at 3-11. Bijan Musterson won in that first matchup in week 5. He beat Laporta Potty 90.5 to 48.7. So if Bijan Musterson, and it just so happens they're playing again this week. So here we go. If Bijan Musterson beats Laporta Potty for the second time, that means the Laporta Potty is going to finish in last place. If Laporta Potty gets the win this week, they will be one game ahead of Bijan, and we'll have to see what happens in the last week of the regular season, which is week 15. So that's where we're at right now. Now that we've got kind of the basement out of the way, let's go ahead and let's get into the rest of it here. Here's what we've got. We've got 3 main games coming up this week. And the first one here is Show Me Your TDs versus Mongolian Beef. Now, Show Me Your TDs, 9-4. And they're actually the number 1 seed in our league, even though in the Yahoo League it shows that somebody else is. They don't put into account all the different tiebreakers and all that fun stuff. Show Me Your TDs is 9-4. They're actually number 1 in the playoffs right now if it were to start this weekend. While they and Dog Soldiers, who are also 9-4, have the exact same record, each leading their respective divisions. Show Me Your TDs has beaten Dog Soldiers twice, once in week 5 and then again in week 12, who, by the way, Dog Soldiers, defending champions, beat them once week 5, week 12. So Show Me Your TDs holds the tiebreaker in this scenario if it were to happen at the end of the season. They're going up against Mongolian Beef, and Mongolian Beef right now is actually, they're at the number 5 seed. So they are just outside of the playoffs right now. Mongolian Beef at 8-5. They've got an outside chance of making it. They're looking at the wild card right now. But let's get into the rest of the rankings before we start talking about the game here. We've got Dog Soldiers, I already mentioned. They're 9-4. They're currently the 2nd seed right now, and they are tied with Money Please, who are both 9-4. They're in the same division. They have that tiebreaker due to beating Money Please in week 2. However, they play each other again this week. So week 14, and Money Please could always turn the tables in this game. And then we've got CD's Nuts at 8-5. They're in sole 3rd place at this point in time, being the 3rd division leader of the league. And then we've got only 3 more teams out of the 12-team league. Unfortunately, 3 more teams got knocked out last week. I think there were only 3 that were not eliminated at this point in time. But now we've got 6 teams eliminated with 2 weeks to go. The number 4 seed right now, I mentioned before, Money Please, 9-4, is the only other team that is 9-4. They would automatically get that wild card spot. Behind them, Mongolian Beef at 8-5. They're the next best record in the league. And then we've got Reek the Freak at 7-6. And they are in 2nd place behind CD's Nuts in the Quad Cox division. So as for everyone else, sorry, you're officially eliminated from the playoffs. The 4 playoff spots will come down to these 6 teams that I have just mentioned in the last 2 weeks of the regular season. 2 teams are alive in each of the 3 divisions, which is really awesome. And the best part is, what a coincidence. I don't know how this all shook down this way, but all of those teams are playing each other this week. So we've got the interdivisional rivalries happening in the last 3 weeks of the regular season. So let's go ahead and let's break it down. This is the first one. Game number 1, Show Me Your TDs at 9-4 versus number 5, Mongolian Beef at 8-5. Now, Mongolian Beef actually beat Show Me Your TDs in week 8 and therefore currently holds the tiebreaker. So if Show Me Your TDs wins and Mongolian Beef falls to 8-6, Show Me Your TDs will win their division outright, and Mongolian Beef will be battling it out for a wild card spot later next week. If Mongolian Beef beats Show Me Your TDs again this week, those 2 teams will have the same record at 9-5. But like I said, Mongolian Beef will own the tiebreaker, and they will lead the division going into the last week of the regular season. At that point, going into week 15, Show Me Your TDs would need to win, and they would need Mongolian Beef to lose in order to win the division. Otherwise, in that scenario, Show Me Your TDs would be playing for a wild card spot at that point in time as well. Game number 2 that we have is Dog Soldiers and Money Please. And this is a father-daughter combination. You should never beat your daughters. I'm just going to put that out there right now. But this is game number 2. Dog Soldiers currently holds the number 2 spot if the playoffs were to happen. They are at 9-4. obviously, again, versus their division rivals, Money Please, who they are currently number 4. They've got the wild card spot as of right now. Dog Soldiers currently has the tiebreaker over Money Please due to beating Money Please in week 2. So if Dog Soldiers beat Money Please again this week, Dog Soldiers will win the division for the second straight year, regardless of what happens in the regular season, week number 15. Money Please will then fall to 8-5 and be fighting to hold on to that wild card spot. Now, if Money Please wins, they will take the lead in the division, and that will also tie the head-to-head record between them and Dog Soldiers. So, if Money Please wins in week 15, they don't have to worry about anything. They will win their division outright. However, if Money Please beats Dog Soldiers this week and they also lose in week 15 and Dog Soldiers wins in week 15, making each team's record 10-5 and having a 1-1 record against each other, the next tiebreaker would go to each team's division record, in which case Dog Soldiers would hold a 4-2 versus 3-3 divisional record, and they would win that tiebreaker, winning the division. So obviously all this is going to get cleared up after this week, but that is what would happen in that division with a quick breakdown. Game number 3. Here we have CD's Nuts versus Reek the Freak. And CD's Nuts, as I mentioned before, number 3 overall with an 8-5 record versus number 6, Reek the Freak. They're barely hanging on to, being and honestly, Reek the Freak, they could win the division. They could be a wild card. It just all kind of depends how this week plays out for starters. If CD's Nuts beats Reek the Freak this week, CD's Nuts will win the division for the second year in a row, and Reek the Freak would be on the outside looking in with a very, very slim chance to win that wild card spot. If Reek the Freak beats CD's Nuts, then Reek the Freak would hold the tiebreaker over CD's Nuts due to beating them in week 5 by a score of, get this, 109.8 to 109.0. Then Reek the Freak would be the division leader, with both teams having the same record of 8-6. Obviously, this would come down to the final regular season game in week 15, same as the last matchup. If Reek the Freak wins week 15, they win the division. But if CD's Nuts wins and Reek the Freak loses, then CD Nuts regains the title. A lot of stuff going on in there. If CD's Nuts loses to Reek the Freak this week, they would be in the hunt for the wild card spot at that point in time. So, as for everyone else, your games don't matter. Sorry, but you're still playing for high score of the week, which is what we do in this league. High score of the week is $25. And if you do not set your lineups, you are not, you're not following the league rules here, because as we discussed in the draft is a $25 penalty for anyone who decides that they are not going to set their lineups. This week really should be the only week that you might have problems if you've got a lot of people on bye. Otherwise, week 15 is next week. Let's make sure that we're all setting our lineups for that. Now, as a side note here, season stats as of right now, speaking of high scores and all that kind of stuff, top 3 highest scoring teams to date. I'll start with number 3. The third highest scoring team is number 5, Mongolian Beef. Currently number 5 in the playoff standings. Hunt for a playoff spot. They are 8-5. They have scored an average of 110.7 points per week. Coming in at number 2 is Dog Soldiers. They have scored an average of 111.8 points per week. And then we've got Money Please, who has scored the most amount of points. Congratulations, Karina, on that. Money Please, 1571 total points. That is 121 points per game. 10 points more per game almost than the second place highest scorer. So congrats on that one. The bottom 3 scoring teams are as followed. Number 10, Bijan Mustardson at 3-10. They have scored only 91.9 points per game. Number 11 is Barry McCockiner, 1179, which comes out to 90.7 points per game. And then we've got the Laporta Potty at 3-10 as well. They have scored 89.8 points per week. Teams that have been scored on the most, which means they've had the toughest schedule. They've had the hardest time to win. In third place there, you've got Barry McCockiner. 1,379 points against him. So on average, his opponents score 106 points per game. Then we've got Mongolian Beef. It's surprised that they're even in the playoff hunt at all at this point. They've had the second most points scored against them, 1,426. That is 109.7 points scored against them every week. So congrats to you, Caden, on actually being in the playoff hunt at this point. And then definitely the prettiest GM in the league, Trophy Wife, has had a very unfortunate year this year. 1,477 points against her every game, which is 113.6 points on average. Tough year for her. Very unfortunate. Teams that have had the easiest schedule. The third easiest schedule coming in is CD's Nuts. His opponents have scored an average of 101.2 points against him every week. Number 2 easiest schedule is Dog Soldiers. His opponents have scored 1,284 points, which is on average 98.8 points per game. And then the easiest schedule this week is Show Me Your TDs at 1,239 points. His opponents have only scored 95.3 points per game against him. He has had the easiest schedule in the league this year. Teams that have won the most high score of the week, we've got a tie in a couple of different areas. We've got Evil Diesel and Money Please have both won it twice this year, earning almost all of their money back for their registration or fees for whatever you want to call it, the annual dues. And then Show Me Your TDs and Mongolian Beef have each won 3 times this year. They have made their money back already and could potentially be making more with playoff berth and trophy champ, Super Bowl champ, whatever you want to call it. Those teams have had the most high score of the week. Teams that have been beaten by the highest score of the week. Here's a fun one. Mongolian Beef, 2 times they have played the high score of the week. And both Bijan Musterson and Trophy Wife, again, very unfortunate for both of those 2 teams. They have played the high score of the week 3 times each. Ouch for you guys. So that's where we have it right now. That is the playoff scenario. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. You can put a message right into our league chat. You can send me a text message. You can do whatever you want to do there. Otherwise, I hope everyone is having a good time down in Greensboro. Miss you guys. And we'll see you probably once the playoff starts here. Maybe even next week. We'll see you for Christmas, all that fun stuff. Have a good time, everyone. Thank you. Bye.